Welcome back to the AFC Summit. My co-hosts today are going to be Chris from Pat's Nation, Dolphin Keith, and let's go ahead and get the obvious out of the way. Where'd all the Bills go?
They're hiding. They're hiding.
Running, hiding. They like the what's it called? They like the Atlanta Falcons fans after the Patriots beat them in the Super Bowl. They had to go and lick their wounds real quick.
You would think that like they've had this nice run for the last 4 years. They built up this big fan base. They're tough. They're rough. They've been through it all, and here they go. One loss to the Patriots, and we can't find one.
Yeah, that was a rough one too. So I guess I don't blame them necessarily for not being around the night, but they had things going on. I'm not gonna get in on them too bad. They had things to do. But yeah, see, there you go, running this business. But yeah, they're not going to be here to defend themselves tonight. So Chris gets free.
So we should kick them while they're down.
Yeah.
Oh absolutely. Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Well, with that off, let me hand it off first to the only other undefeated team in the AFC East. Chris, tell me a little bit about your beatdown of the Bills.
Man, that was a beautiful, beautiful game. What can I say? Last week during the show, we had no confidence whatsoever, or I had no confidence whatsoever. I said we need to see something drastic. I need to see a spark from Mac Jones to help me believe in this Patriots offense. And boy, oh boy, did they show that spark in a big way. And Keith, you made some very excellent chat points to our Discord chat. You said the Patriots are a team with no talent, but they show talented teams just how good they're not. And it is true. Patriots, when you think about it, right? Patriots don't have any big names from any skill positions, and they've never had any big name wide receivers outside of Randy Moss. But they make it work with just a good group of guys of good chemistry. And so this is what we've seen this week. And man, it was just a beautiful thing to see us take down one of the better teams in the NFL. So I was very happy, very pleased. I said Demario Douglas needed to be the guy to step up. He stepped up in a big way. Mac Jones stepped up, played a clean game, good game from the defense, good game from the offense. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Even if I was on the edge of my seat toward the end of the fourth, I loved that we was able to pull that W out this week. And man, oh man, are we going to talk about it during this show?
Keith, did you get to watch the game live?
I did.
Bills and the Patriots. Or Chris, I know did. But Keith, do you have any comments on the game?
Well, I was actually on the subway on the way down to the stadiums, on the way down to the Eagles-Dolphins game. So as I watched that final drive for the Patriots on my way down, on the subway on the way down. And it was so when the Patriots were up late in that game, about 5 minutes left to go, Bills came back to take the lead. I thought, okay, this game's over, the universe is writing itself and all, and the Patriots showed a lot of toughness and grit in that final drive. And I, as much as I've been anti-Mac Jones and anti this Patriots team in general, they showed a lot of grit and toughness in that game. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised because that's kind of become synonymous with Patriots football, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't watch the whole game. I watched, I was kind of in and out on Sunday for the most part, but, Chris, I want to ask you, what did you see from the Bills in that game? What did they do wrong?
You know what? I think it's more or less of what we've always been talking about. That hero ball to Stephon Diggs. Once the Patriots have a ability, they have a talent for locking down your number one receiver. We've seen it when they played the Jets. We've seen it when they played the Dolphins. We've seen it when we played the Bills now. Stephon Diggs went for about 58 yards on 6 receptions. So he, not in typical Stephon Diggs fashion, but that was without Christian Gonzalez. We have Jackson and JC Jones in there. So yeah, they shut down. They shut down the number one receiver, and then everyone else didn't produce because Dalton Kincaid had his, career game, but Gabe Davis as well. He had 1 reception for 6 yards. So, they played a good all-around defense. They took Josh Allen out of his rhythm, and we just did what we needed to do to get that win on offense and defense.
let's go ahead and address that real quick. We got Red, White, and Bills saying that Diggs didn't get locked down. Now, I've seen Diggs play football. I've seen Diggs go off for 110, 150, almost 200 yards, multiple touchdowns. You said he went for what, 58?
58 yards and no touchdowns. That sounds like lockdown to me.
I was going to say, if you're going to justify not getting locked down, but your number one receiver did nothing besides catch a couple of short passes,
relative,
I don't know. What would be a definition of lockdown for Red, White, and Bills?
Well, relative to Stephon Diggs' normal production, that's locked down. You know,
he did a full two games of Stephon Diggs worth of production.
Yeah.
Yeah, 58 and 6 and a touchdown is, I mean, yeah, it's not what you need out of your number one receiver. No, like you're expecting your big ones to take a step up. If Stephon Diggs is routinely good for what, 1,400 yards? That means over the course of a season, he's averaging about 90 yards or so. That's just average. 58 yards over the course of a season is barely a 1,000-yard season.
Yeah,
I agree.
You're holding it well underneath his average production over the course of a season. So.
Look, I respect Brett, and I respect the things he has to say about the Bills. But relative to Stephon Diggs' normal production, the Patriots did a really nice job against Stephon Diggs on Sunday.
You're not going to hold him to 0.
Yeah, and like I said, we've seen this countless times from the Patriots throughout the season. And I think we're going to continue to see it. That's just one of the things that they do well. Even if their offense isn't producing, their defense will definitely. Their defense will step up to the challenge. So I think that's what we saw, and I hope that we continue to see it, the defensive coordinator. And I think Bill O'Brien got a little bit more creative, because one thing I did see on the offense that I really loved is we did see a lot of motion plays. It reminded me of a Miami offense. We just see like a lot of receivers confusing. They made the Bills play the eye test. We see a lot of receivers dragging across the line of scrimmage, just in motion, trying to see where this guy's going to go. And I think that also helped open up the running lanes, because we did see some good production from Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott. So I was really pleased about that. And it even opened up a 20-yard run from Demario Douglas. So it was just a good day overall. I was really happy to see that, really see
Another thing from that game I'd like to bring up. I mean, we talked about locking down Diggs, and, they held him to very reasonable production for a number one receiver, one of the top 5 in the game. Christian Barmore beat the holy crap out of Osiris Torrance. If you go back and watch that game, the amount of times that he got really, really easy swim move, quick penetration, it forced a lot of early throws from Josh Allen. And, that's just a veteran. That's one of the top in the game taking advantage of a rookie. And that's just something that happens in the NFL. Osiris Torrance got the crap beat out of him by Christian Barmore, and ultimately that quick interior pressure forced Josh into making some errors. The first interception, I don't know if you want to talk about it for a second, but like that first interception, there wasn't even that much pressure. There was some pressure off of Brown's side, but he was scrambling a little bit to the left, and that was just a poor decision.
So listen, about that first interception, all I can say about that was a good play on Jabril Peppers' part, right? So Jabril Peppers, he was watching the eyes of the quarterback. He saw that Allen didn't want to go to the flat, and immediately it was like they had a high-low route, to the corner. He saw Allen didn't want to go to the flat. Immediately after he realized that, watching his eyes, he darted back to the receiver. Well, I think it was the tight end on the deep out route, and he was able to pick it off. So definitely, it was just a good defensive play overall, and that's what we saw all throughout the game. Great defensive plays. So I don't blame Allen on that one. It was a good the pass was open, or appeared to be open, but that was just a bait on their on part. So I love that play. I definitely wanted to talk about that first play of the game, first one interception. So I was extremely pleased. I knew what we were in for that day.
Yeah. It's also something that we have to talk about a little bit. This division, I don't know where he's getting this. There's no pressure on the interception. Just watch the play.
Listen, I think Brett's done. He's done with us.
Let's talk a little bit about the fact that this division is just so friggin' weird. Like, how do the Patriots? I shared the meme where like the Patriots in the division are like this big, strong, like alpha dog, and then like they get outside and they're like a house cat. Like how do you explain this division? It makes no sense to me. And it's always like this.
I mean, I feel like these are guys who just know each other well. They play, they play each other a couple times a year. They just know each other well. And this has been for years, so eventually you kind of, if it's someone you play all the time, and you don't have a formula for them, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It just seems like Bill Belichick can coach up inside this division. And nothing seems to make sense.
Well, and it helps. It helps that he sees us 2 times a year. I mean, and you give Bill Belichick a ton of looks at your team. Give Bill Belichick a ton of looks at one specific coach, and he's going to figure out a way to scheme. Oh, he's going to figure out a way to scheme to beat them, and I've heard going into this week. I heard a bunch of, well, should the Patriots fire Bill Belichick? And you don't fire Bill Belichick. The man writes his own ticket, and he's going to stick around until he breaks the record.
Did you sorry, not to cut you off, Keith, but speaking of Bill Belichick, did you also see that I sent a message to the Discord? Apparently, Bill Belichick signed a multi-year contract extension in the offseason quietly.
Yeah, that was that's like an interesting report that just got leaked out. What was it? Just this weekend, right?
Yeah, well, I think it was either yesterday or today, but so Bill Belichick's not going anywhere for a little while at least.
No, and nor should
he. Unless he wants, yeah.
Bill Belichick writes his own ticket. He's earned that in the NFL, and games like Sunday where he schemed away for an inferior team, and talent-wise, the Patriots are inferior.
Yes.
Schemed away for an inferior team to beat a superior team. That's the Bill Belichick effect.
Yes.
Yeah, that's peak Bill Belichick. It really is. But that's a hard recipe over the course of a 17-game season. You don't want to have to do that. You don't want to have to rely on your coach having to coach up inferior players. Ideally, you want to be on par, or you just want to have better players. There are teams like Philadelphia that just have better teams. They just have they draft better than most teams. They work the salary cap better than most teams.
And they trade for all pro safeties.
What's that?
And then they trade for all pro safeties midseason.
Yeah, and then they trade for all pro safeties. They get all pro wide receivers, like from teams for fun.
And I'm wondering, does Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, does he have something on the Tennessee Titans GM or something? Because AJ Brown and then Kevin Byard, does he have incriminating pictures of this guy? Because what he gave up for Kevin Byard is that was a criminal trade on Howie Roseman's part.
But he keeps doing it.
Yeah, he does. To his credit. But yeah, like you said, Anthony, some teams just have the talent, and some teams have what the Patriots have, and they have that coach that's always going to be their X factor.
Yeah. I guess you can call it talent, but it's kind of like it's a different type of talent, right? Because like you said, it's not the talent so much in the skill positions where you have a person like Stephon Diggs or Tyreek Hill. And that's one thing that I think I can find so amazing in the Patriots, because they have no-name people who they just make great. Even like a player like Julian Edelman or Gronkowski, these are people who are no-name players who just were great. And I was watching some highlights because it is National Tight End Day, so I was watching some of the highlights of Gronkowski. My God, it's almost like you forget how much of a monster this guy was.
That's
just
true.
the plays he made, how hard he was to bring down, how aggressive he ran. Just the Patriots have always been guys.
Also, Chris, a really underrated aspect of Gronk's game, his blocking. He was like an extra tackle out there. Yeah, for my money, Rob Gronkowski is the best tight end I've ever seen.
Yes,
and I've seen Tony Gonzalez. I've seen Shannon Sharp.
Antonio Gates.
Shannon
Sharp. Yeah.
Travis Kelce, but for my money, Gronk's the best of them all.
Absolutely.
Hands down.
Absolutely. 100%. He's the perfect example of the perfect tight end prospect going to the perfect place. Yeah. Because with his personality, had he ended up in one of the party teams, if he'd ended up with the Chargers or the Cowboys, or there's a lot of ways you could see a prospect of that caliber just kind of flame out.
Yeah.
But getting that structure with Tom Brady, with Bill Belichick, we have to talk about the fact that is one of the best coach-player pairings ever.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If
All
he
right,
went to
Keith, let's get to your Dolphins. Let's talk about them for a little bit.
Do we have to?
We do. We do.
we
Because
sure
we've
do.
got no Jets and we've got no Bills.
Yeah, understood. All right. Well, look, I went back and watched this game from more of a less emotional perspective, and taking emotion out of it. The Dolphins didn't play that bad of a game, if I'm being honest. They held tough with the Eagles. Their offensive line was decimated by those injuries. So Isaiah Wynn went down in the first quarter of that game, and basically the Eagles decided, okay, well, this is the area that we're going to pick on for the rest of the game. But the Dolphins had a backup center, a backup left guard, and a backup left tackle for that game. The Eagles' defensive line did a really nice job of caving in the Dolphins' offensive line on pretty much every play. And it's hard to execute. It's hard to execute an offense when that happens to you. So as much as I want to, on Sunday I was pretty distraught. I was calling the Dolphins frauds. I was not saying very nice things about my football team. But looking back on it, the Dolphins hung tough in that game. And look, one of my biggest pet peeves with NFL football, with sports fans in general, is when their team loses, they blame the officials. But I'm telling you guys right now, that was one of the worst official games I've ever seen in my entire life. The Dolphins got hosed time after time by the officials. And whether it's the calls that were made against the Dolphins or the calls that weren't made against the Eagles, the Dolphins had 10 penalties for 70 yards, and the Eagles had nothing, no penalties whatsoever. There was a pass interference call and a face mask call all in one that wasn't called. There was a roughing the passer call on Christian Wilkins, where Christian Wilkins clearly pulled off and basically ran into Jalen Hurts. But it wasn't. The official. I guess it was Gene Steratore or whatever it was. He said himself that wasn't a roughing the passer call. There were holds. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, right.
There were holds. There were holds against the Dolphins that were called that probably shouldn't have been called. But you know what? If you're going to call them on the Dolphins, call them both ways, because the Eagles' offensive line had some holes on the Dolphins. Like on Jalen Phillips was a one-man wrecking crew in that game. He was constantly in the backfield, and he was held 2 or 3 times in that game. The calls weren't made. So I'm not blaming the officials, Sean. I'm not blaming the officials. I'm saying the officials didn't do the Dolphins any favors in this game. And if you're going to call it one way, call it both ways. There were roughing the passer calls that weren't called against the Eagles, but you're going to call that one against Christian Wilkins. And I told myself I wasn't going to do this. I told myself I wasn't going to go in on the ref. But you know what? Like watching that game a second time, it needs to be pointed out that was a criminally bad job of refereeing in that game. And
I agree.
If I'm wrong, please tell me in the comments. Please tell me. Like if you watch the game and you think I'm wrong here, please tell me. So what do you guys think?
I definitely think it was a poorly officiated game. But I would also point out the fact that what I was saying earlier about sort of the talent gap. Now, you did have a lot of injuries, but like the Eagles' entire secondary is all banged up too. And you would think that a banged-up secondary against Miami Dolphins offense with Jalen Waddle, with Tyreek Hill, would be able to take advantage of that. And what I saw consistently, especially, and it wasn't even in the passing game, like they beat you up in the run game. Like Raheem Mostert in the first half did nothing. Every time he'd get a handoff, absolutely. Yeah, I did get a new camera. Every time he'd get a handoff, he was hitting the backfield. He would have to break a tackle in the backfield just to get positive yards. There were times where and this is one of those situations where good players make bad calls still good. Tyreek Hill, they gave him the end around a couple times. At least one of the times I watched, they tracked him the whole way, and he still got 4 yards on it. Yeah. That's just a special player that can move like a special player. Not entirely wrong when he says that that the best offense in the NFL only scored 10 points. You guys did need to put more points on the board.
Yeah.
For as much as they clamped down on the run game, I felt like Tua wasn't pressured as terribly as you would have expected based on like the stat line. I don't know. I didn't watch the 22 on it, so I don't know how covered everybody was downfield. But it also didn't feel like Mike McDaniel's best game called.
No,
Mhm.
no, I would agree with that. There was also some, again, mental mistakes on the Dolphins that I've been railing against them all year for. There was a touchdown that Tyreek Hill just dropped. He catches that ball, he walks into the end zone. There was a couple of holes on the Dolphins that were holes that were definitely holes, and that they shouldn't have done. There were mental errors on the Dolphins, but I go back and I look at that game, and it was a weird game the way things kind of played out. But and the Dolphins certainly should have scored more than 10 points. I agree with that. But
and I want to say, because I think Anthony had a very good point when he mentioned that the fact that the running game couldn't get going, and also that was probably also a big part in the fact that they've lost Devon Achan and what's it called, Salvador Ahmed wasn't able to really get going.
Chris Brooks got hurt, and he's a dude that can break tackles if he's taken in the backfield.
Raheem Mercer wasn't able to really get going on the ground game either, and they're still working Jeff Wilson Jr. back into the offense. So I think the fact, because one thing we haven't given the Dolphins enough credit of is how great their running game has been this year. I mean, Raheem Mostert has been doing phenomenal on the ground. Devon Achan, when he was healthy and when he was playing, he was going for 100 yards every game, 100 plus yards every game. So he was looking 200 yards. He was looking phenomenal, So I think the fact that they were able to shut down that running game and kind of just focus more on that passing attack played a really big part into why they weren't able to really score and why offense was able to move the ball for the Dolphins.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, their run game wasn't very good. And, I was saying how the left side of their line was injured and was caved in. The Dolphins constantly ran to the left side. Why wouldn't you run behind probably your best offensive lineman remaining, their right guard, Robert Hunt? Why wouldn't you run behind him? Why wouldn't you run behind Austin Jackson, who's also healthy? Why would you run behind an injured left guard, a backup left guard, a backup left
tackle? What's going on, Jake? Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks for tuning in, Jake. So yeah, but like I said, I would go back and I look at this game, and it wasn't nearly as doom and gloom, the sky is falling, as I originally thought. And instead of being super down on this team, I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged with the way they played against the Eagles when the odds were kind of stacked against them, and they held them tough in that game. And I'm not saying it's a moral victory. I'm saying it's a game they should have won and they could have won. I'm saying let's wait till the Chiefs game. Let's see what happens in the Chiefs game.
From a 10,000-foot perspective, for me, I would like to point out the fact that yes, you lost this game, but it was also an away game. Like, you need to win at home if you're going to make the playoffs. You need to have that 6-2, 7-1 record at home. So if you lose a game to a legitimate contender and it's away, you can't toss it away, but it's so hard to win away from your home in the NFL that you can sort of accept it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And two of your worst losses, your only two losses, the Bills away, the Eagles away.
Yeah. And even this Chiefs game coming up is in Germany. So, now it's neutral ground for both teams. We'll see how the Dolphins come back from this loss against the Patriots this week. Looking forward to talking to you about that, Chris, now that you got your swagger back. But,
only the one game. That was it. Just one game.
Yeah, that's all it took, right?
Dylan's got her groove back.
But we'll see. we'll see how they respond from this, because this wasn't a fun loss, but this was hopefully an educational loss, and hopefully a loss that where you say, okay, we got zero of the calls, we were hurt all over the place, and our defense held up pretty well, and they did hold up pretty well against this Eagles offense. They scored some points of their own, which is something the Dolphins hadn't really done this season, forced a lot of turnovers. So, we'll see how the Dolphins respond to this going forward. I'm not super discouraged by this loss, and I thought I would be.
Well, let's use that as a yeah. Let's use that as a springboard real quick to get into our next week's matchups. You were just mentioning Chiefs in Germany. How are you feeling about that?
Well, it's Dolphins Patriots.
Dolphins in who is it? Dolphins Patriots?
Yeah,
down
in Miami.
I missed that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Dolphins Patriots in Miami, and then Chiefs Dolphins in Germany.
Okay.
And the Dolphins get a much needed bye. They need a bye so badly right now. This team needs a week off, you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mince words here. I think the Dolphins are going to beat the Patriots down pretty good in this one. The Dolphins are going to be angry after this win, and the Patriots are going to be smelling themselves a little bit after their win. So, I think this is going to be a rough game for Chris. This doesn't normally happen in division, especially when it comes to the Patriots, but I think the Dolphins are really going to take their anger and frustration out of the Patriots this week, especially down home in Miami.
Okay, that's a very interesting take. I mean, my take on it, because now that I got my swagger back, my take on it is the first game that we played against the Patriots, that we played against Miami, it was a really close game. They won by 1 point, and that was on a 30-40 yard scamper by Raheem Mostert toward the end of the game. I want to say they did keep Tyreek Hill pretty quiet during that game. Jalen Waddle did a little bit better, but he's been battling injury throughout the season, so I'm not sure how geared to go he's going to be when he plays the Patriots. I think if we can replicate the same formula, if we can do the same thing that we did to Tyreek Hill in the first game, I think we should be all right this game, especially if the offense is able to produce like they did against the Bills. I mean, like I said, we shut down Tyreek Hill before, we shut down Stephon Diggs. It's nothing to do it again. So I think it's going to be a pleasant surprise. And one thing I want to say, Keith, is you shouldn't be too upset about the loss, especially when you lose to a good team. So
Yeah,
so Eagles are a great team.
That was a game I was at. That was a game I really wanted. That was a game and you're at the tailgate and Eagles fans are just screaming at you left and right. Words that I can't use on this show. And it makes you want it so much more.
Can you take us back to that feeling of being in that stadium? Because we were all talking about what it was going to be like when you were there. We were all sort of joking, like, don't end up on Dove Kleeman, on the highlights of the fans fighting. What were they actually like?
They were, for the most part, respectful, but they noticed me and they gave it to me.
Yeah.
Now there were a couple of guys that jumped over the line. There were a couple of they couldn't have been any more than 18 years old, but they had a few adult beverages in them regardless, and they were coming at me pretty hard, and there was a fence separating us, and it was like,
sheesh.
Good for you guys that you got a fence separating you right now. But it's tough to be. It's easy to be big and bad when you have a fence separating you. But for the most part, they were respectful. For the most part, there were a few Dolphins fans at the game, and we kind of pumped fists and gave each other commiserating looks, like, yeah, we're going through it right now. But no, it was a good time, and the Eagles fans, they have a reputation, and some of it's earned. But some of it, is the kind of the stuff of legend where, you get stuff passed down from, one person to another, and suddenly, Eagles fans are the worst people ever. And that wasn't really the case. For the most part, they were all right.
Okay.
Okay, that's good to hear. I'm glad you had a good time though, but I think you might be bad luck, Keith. You might be bad luck. You might want to avoid all Dolphins games for the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean, the last one I was at, they won. So I mean,
Okay.
the last time I was at in Philly, they won. They beat the Eagles 20-19. So I was hoping I could bring some good juju to the Finns, and wasn't happening this time.
It's okay. It's
Fair
all
enough,
good.
fair
It's
enough.
all good. I did want to talk about some of the stats. Well, I guess we already discussed that game in length, but so we can move forward about that. But man, I'm just so excited about that Bills win. I can't get enough talking about that. I love the fact that I
You
love the
should
fact that
be.
Mac Jones outplayed Josh Allen,
He
who
did.
and who was supposed to be quote unquote MVP candidate. Man, he
Mhm.
outplayed. I mean, even if you look at the stats, right? So Allen had 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception to Jones's 272 yards and 2 touchdowns and no interception. Jones played a really clean game. And I think that was one of the biggest issues. Definitely, turning the ball over is a big issue for any team, right? But
Mhm.
just the fashion that he's been doing it in the past of blowouts, that's why I kind of came into the game with no confidence whatsoever. But watching him play a clean game and just all around keep the ball, protect the ball, not trying to force anything when the pocket collapsed and take that sack if he had to. It was a beautiful game, but you know. What's it called? Let's see some of the stats. Kincaid actually led the Bills. Since we don't have a Bills rep, I'll talk about it, right?
Please.
So Kincaid was the leading receiver for the Bills. He had 8 receptions at 75 yards. So it's good to see that pick is actually starting to get some value, and he's actually starting to step up and be that tight end that Dawson Knox has yet to prove. Diggs was shut down, like I said. Diggs only had 58 receiving yards, which is not typical Diggs fashion. It's a pretty decent game for most wide receivers, but that's not Diggs fashion, especially not the production you want to see out your wide receiver one. Gabe Davis, what can I say about him? 1 reception for 6 yards. One of the things that we always speak about for the Bills is that if you want to see the Bills to win, they got to spread that ball around a little bit more. They need to get Gabe Davis more involved. It can't just be Diggs, Kincaid. They have so many good wide receivers that they need to really get them involved. The running game was subpar. James Cooks had 13 carries for 16 yards, 56 yards. So wasn't their best game on the ground. He's normally more involved, but what can you do? As for the Patriots, we did see combined yardage between the two backs, Elliott and Ramon Stevenson. They had 65 yards combined, not including a 51 yards through the air that Ramon Stevenson got. So he ended up with 85 yards from scrimmage that day. Kendrick Bourne, 63 yards. So he had more receiving yards than Stephon Diggs. And Kendrick Bourne, I would not put him on the same level as Stephon Diggs. So that's why we can say that Diggs was shut down for sure. So 63 yards and a touchdown. Demario Douglas had 54 yards through the air and 20 yards rushing for 74 yards total from scrimmage. And we even got some production out of our backup tight end because we know Hunter Henry was tweaking. He's dealing with his ankle injury. So Pharaoh Brown stepped up and he had 2 receptions for 51 yards. So it was just a very, very good game all around. I love that Mac Jones was able to spread the ball, get the receivers involved, get the backs involved, and the defense was able to, do their thing to secure the win. So I was very happy. It was a great game for both teams, but ultimately the better team won.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I mean, you guys showed up. You might have something there in Pharaoh Brown. He's a player. I don't know that he's going to be like leading your team, but like he's come up. He's the reason you won against the Jets. Let's take everything else away. He's the reason that you won against the Jets. You scored one touchdown against us, and it was Pharaoh Brown breaking loose for like 50 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that he says we're the only team. They're the only team that needs to throw to 8 receivers. Meanwhile, I'm looking at it, and Mac Jones threw 2. Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Pharaoh Brown, Ramondre Stevens, and Hunter Henry, Jalen Raker. I didn't know he was still in the league. Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, Tyquan Thornton. Guys, this is the NFL. You got to spread the ball. Sorry.
Yeah. Sean's a little upset today. I can tell from the tone of his messages.
He's a little bit salty, and that's okay. That's okay.
We'll give it to Sean.
Dalton Kincaid was taken in the draft this year, and 2 picks before him was Jordan Addison, who literally just won his team an entire football game.
Yeah. Jordan Addison was incredible last night.
Jordan Addison was absolutely nuts. And Dalton Kincaid had a good game. Jordan Addison won his team an entire football game. Justin Jefferson's out, and they won a game. So, that's the difference between drafting wide receivers and drafting tight ends. 3 picks before him was Zay Jones. Not Zay Jones, Zay Flowers. Another guy that just scored his first touchdown. That's just the way the NFL. Draft wide receivers before tight ends. Cool. So I guess we're going to talk about my matchup because I'm not talking about the Bills matchup. I'm not interested right now. We got the Giants this week. We are in MetLife. First off, I saw somebody talk about this, and I'm super interested in it. Now that we have a 17th game, do you guys think that we should always have a rivalry game that we don't always play? Because the Jets, for example, always should play the Giants every single year. We should just always have them on the record. Yeah. Because I think that would be fantastic. I think the Dolphins should always play the Bucs. At least I think
the Dolphins should always play the Ravens, and they pretty much always do. Something always happens between the Dolphins and the Ravens, and they're playing them again week 17. So, for whatever reason, the Dolphins and Ravens always play each other, and something weird always happens between them. That's kind of like a Giants-Jets thing that you got going on there. And I think that should happen every year. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that we should take that 17th game, and it shouldn't just be like a random team that we play. I think that we should have a rivalry game. I think that'd be fantastic for the NFL. I would love.
Because even when you think about those rivalry games, right? They always played hard. It's always just like there's always that extra venom that's in the atmosphere when you play, especially when you think about like the Bears and the Packers. Classic rivalry. You always see them play hard, and there's always just for bragging rights. And sometimes even the Bears with their terrible offense would give it to Aaron Rodgers. They would end up pulling that double A. I think when I think about the Patriots rivals, I always think about the Miami Dolphins because that's always a team that no matter what, even at our peak, the Dolphins somehow would always sneak in a win. Like a couple years ago when the lateral play, when they ended up getting the last play of the game and just busting it open and having Gronkowski.
How about the Wildcat game? Do you remember that? Were you old enough to remember like the invention of the Wildcat was against the Patriots?
Yeah, Keith, you're muted by the way. But yeah, I remember that game for sure.
Yeah, the Miami Miracle. Gronk didn't have the ankle.
But, he's like Frankenstein out there.
And you know what? It's all well and good to think about that game, but that was the last game the Dolphins won that season, and that was the last game the Patriots lost that season. So let's, keep things in perspective here,
I mean, we have to talk about it, because if I had to think about a rivalry, I would think about the Dolphins for sure.
Absolutely. Even at Brady's peak, weird things would happen when they went down to Miami. For whatever reason, the Dolphins always played that version of the Patriots tough. And it was one of the things that always warmed my heart. Even if the Dolphins were going to finish 6-10, they were going to play the Patriots tough.
For sure.
Yeah, those games are always bloodbaths.
So I did want to bring up too. I think Mac Jones probably solidified his spot as our wide receiver as our quarterback moving forward because we did see the waiving again of Malik Cunningham for the second time this season. Malik Cunningham is no longer on our roster. So it was one of the guys that was high on all preseason, and one of the guys I said that would be the team savior. But I think Mac Jones, with his performance and his big win over the Bills, he ended up solidifying his spot moving forward. So he did show the spark that I was looking for. Let's see if he can capitalize it and continue to go forward.
Some Bills news that Jake's bringing up. Apparently, they just restructured Dawkins to bring up $3.9 million. That's not like a ton of money, but who would they bring in potentially as a second wide receiver? Who do you guys even see available right now? Who do you think might be available as a second wide receiver aside from your Terrace Marshalls or?
There's DeAndre Hopkins. There's like Jake said in the chat. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to, teams that have a lost season ahead of them.
Hollywood Brown, maybe?
Who's that?
Anthony? Hollywood
Brown. Marquise. Yeah, he popped in my head, and he would actually fit really well in that Bills offense. But I don't.
Jake's making jokes now.
Yeah, right.
Odell Beckham Jr. maybe.
I mean, I've heard that Devontae Adams could be made available in Las Vegas.
He's very unhappy with his situation in Las Vegas. I think he might come to New England. I'm hoping. That's my hope. We didn't get D-Hop. I hope we get Devontae Adams.
There are guys that I think the Bills need somebody on that offense. They need another skill position player because who they have isn't cutting it right now.
Yeah.
Whether that be a Hollywood Brown who would fit perfectly in that offense, in my opinion.
I agree. I think Hollywood's a good one.
Yeah.
Would that matter if they get another skill player and and Allen continues to play hero ball to Diggs?
Well, I think if they get another skill position player of a Hollywood Brown caliber, he'll be less inclined to play hero ball to Diggs. And that'll open up the field a little bit more for Diggs. So that, when Allen does want to throw to Diggs, maybe it'll be a little more open for him. It just takes a little bit of the pressure off because we've been saying all season, there needs to be another receiver that steps up for the Bills, whether it be Gabe Davis or
Kincaid.
Yeah, or Dalton Kincaid, who, probably is going to be pressed into action now that Dawson Knox is hurt. But somebody has to step up, and nobody on that offense really has stepped up for them. So, and I know they've been looking for Gabe Davis all season to do it, but he just hasn't. So you get another guy on that offense that takes the pressure off of everybody, Josh Allen included.
Yeah, YOLO balls to Hollywood Brown hit different than YOLO balls to Gabe Davis. Let's be clear.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I always like Hollywood Brown, even when he was like the number one receiver on the Ravens. When I felt like if they had another guy to complement him, then the Ravens would look really good. But even so, they ended up releasing him. I didn't see why they did it, but I think he's making it work. And speaking of the Ravens, that was a big win that they had over the Lions this week, an amazing win. I thought the Lions were much better than that, but man, Lamar Jackson looked fantastic. They call one of the announcers during the game. They called him Lamarkable, and I thought that was hilarious.
That's a very good one.
I thought that was hilarious, but man, he looked so good that game. So yeah, they really spanked the Lions this week.
Yeah, I was expecting a better showing from the Lions, and I think sometimes you just don't show up, and I think that's what happened. From the start of that game, the Lions just didn't seem to be mentally all there. And the Ravens came to play, and they really just blew them out.
Yeah, that was an absolute beatdown.
They
were the Lions were never in it, and they never got back in.
Nope. It was it was terrible. Even watching it just feel like I just watched how Lamar Jackson, he danced in that pocket. Normally he's the kind of guy he'll scramble if the pocket collapses, but he was in the pocket for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds comfortably, not getting touched, just comfortably. And then, of course, during that time, a receiver's going to spring himself open if he just keeps running, So I just watched him pick them apart. Even I forgot who got a touchdown. It was like a veteran player that got a touchdown, but he was just available. But he just made himself available just keep moving. So I can't remember his name, but it'll come to me eventually. But that was just definitely a big win for those guys, and they moved up to third in the power ranking. So they're looking good right now, the Ravens.
Yeah, the Ravens are a very strong team right now. Right now, I am rocking not Corbett. I'm rocking Gastineau from the '80s because they brought the throwbacks back. This one's now popular.
Nice.
It's actually true story. So I used to live in China. I taught over there, and jerseys are obviously you get great knockoffs there. They have entire stores of like just jerseys. Hockey jerseys, baseball jerseys, football jerseys, throwbacks. You can order them custom any way you want. I got my father, Klecko, and I got me, Gastineau.
All right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. That was
I
a
get some more jerseys. I'm going to do that for sure.
Get the rest. You should get the rest of the guys on that New York Stock Exchange. Those jerseys too.
I feel like I need the new ones now. I feel like I need a Bryce Huff jersey. I feel like I need a Quinnen Williams jersey. I feel like I need a Quincy Williams jersey. This is a good Jets defense. This is a good Jets defense. I don't even want to talk about the Giants game, largely because I feel like I'm going to jinx them. Like this is going to be the first time the Giants actually look tough.
Because Tyrod Taylor's been looking good for the Giants. I don't know how long the Daniel Jones experiment's going to last because Tyrod came out there.
It's got to last at least another 2 years. They got him.
Yeah.
If they wanted to cut him next year, they would still owe $36 million on the cap.
Yeah.
After next year.
That's horrible.
They kind of locked themselves into that contract, and when they did it, I shook my head like, you know, I know he picked the playoffs and everything, but that had so little to do with Mac Jones.
Daniel
Jones. I'm sorry. Yeah, so that had so little. That didn't have anything to do with Mac Jones either. But now,
it had as much to do with Mac Jones as it did Daniel Jones.
Exactly. No, that was just a team that was playing. You know, the defense was really strong last year, and Daniel Jones was okay, but he was not worthy of that contract the Giants gave him. And when they gave it to him, it was just like, you know,
everybody cringed. Like literally everybody cringed. I have Giants friends that were just like, you know, we just don't want him. You know, we're not going to get him back if he goes to free agency. I was like, you really sure about that? You really think the rest of the league wants him?
It kind of makes you wonder what games the front office are watching, because if they're watching the same games that we're watching, like how do you justify signing a guy for that much money? It's like I wouldn't have signed him at all. You know,
I can tell you about it. I can tell you about that. So, the owner, the original owner was Wellington Mara of the New York Giants, maybe like 70 years ago. His son, Rooney Mara, I think his name is whatever. Anyway, the Mara that owns it now. 2 years ago, when Dable took over, he literally came out and told the media that we want to do right by Daniel Jones. We have not developed him. We have not put a surrounding cast around him. Like, he came out in a press conference. The owner comes out and says that we need to build around Daniel Jones, which is obviously handcuffing your brand new head coach, and your new front office to like a mid-level, maybe below average quarterback. They take him to the playoffs last year, and Mara comes out and says, we are going to make him our franchise quarterback. It wasn't the front office. That was the ownership.
Wow.
Yeah. That was the ownership.
That's like if the boss comes down from upstairs and say, guys, we're working mandatory overtime for the next few weeks. Well, what do you do?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's hamstrung his team then, because Daniel Jones is only going to take you so far. And that's about where he took them last year when they went out in the divisional round to the Eagles.
And you see that he's not even taking him that far this year.
Yeah. Not even close.
Like Tyrod Taylor comes in and immediately it's an upgrade. That's depressing.
But Anthony, we should talk about that game. So you should probably go ahead and.
All right. We'll talk about the Jets versus the Giants. I'll do it. You'll make me. I'll do it. All right. So what I've seen from the Giants when I watched them play against the Bills, Wink Martindale is really hitting home right now with his blitzes. He is blitzing at an insane rate right now in the NFL. I think he's either tied for first or has the lead in cover zero blitzes. They are sending 6 or 7 sometimes, which is unbelievable. And they're hitting home. You're seeing Kayvon finally start to take a step forward after about a year and a half. He's looking very decent. So they have a ferocious pass rush, but I think the Jets are going to make their money. For one, coming off a bye, teams, just statistically, teams have a massive advantage coming off the bye. It's like 65-35 for teams coming off a bye versus teams not coming off a bye. It is technically an away game, but it's not an away game. So there's no home field advantage.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants are very vulnerable to big runs. And Breece Hall is, now that Devin A. Chain is broken, Breece Hall is the best big play running back in the NFL currently.
Mm-hmm. So
while we might have some injuries along the offensive line, we're not sure if Tippmann's going to come back. Salah said that Tippmann's that Joe Tippmann, the center that we drafted out of Wisconsin, who's playing guard sized. It's not like he's undersized. He said Robert Saleh said that he's a quick healer, which means he's probably he's probably been defibrillated back to life a couple of times now, and they're just ready to pull the plug at this moment, because every time Robert Saleh says somebody's ready to come back, they go on IR. So I do think, despite the fact that we've had some injuries along the offensive line, we're going to have more than enough firepower for them offensively. Yes, Tyrod Taylor has been plucky. We are going to hit him until he doesn't want to get up again. That offensive line is trash. You're not going to convince me otherwise. We have done it to better teams, better offensive lines with better weapons. Yeah. With, our last game that we played was a week ago, and we had no secondary players against the Philadelphia Eagles, who have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. So you're telling me we're not going to be able to lock down Darius Slayton and Paris Campbell?
Yeah, right.
Also in that game, you said, you're going to hit Tyrod Taylor until he doesn't want to get up anymore. Mm-hmm. There was you kind of looked at Jalen Hurts at the fourth quarter of that game against the Jets a couple weeks ago, and he had that same kind of look where he just didn't want to get up anymore. He was not up for it in the fourth quarter. He was tired of getting hit.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're going to go ham on this very porous offensive line. I'll put it another way. I'm starting the Jets defense in our fantasy league.
Okay.
And I would recommend it to anybody else.
Who are you playing this week, by the way?
I think I'm playing Mike.
Okay.
Bills fan CA. That's Mike, right?
No, that's no. That is Mike. That is Mike. Bronx
I'm playing him this week, and he's the highest scorer in the league.
Barely.
I think I might have fallen behind you, or we're very close. You and I are very close, Chris, in second highest score. So it's going to be it should be a bit of a shootout. I like my matchups better than I like his matchups because I have Breece Hall on my team, obviously, and I'm starting the Jets defense. I have some pretty decent matchups for my quarterbacks, and I have nobody on bye. I have Nico Collins back from bye week this past week, so I'm feeling okay about it.
Are you Breece? Yeah. Are you Breece? Your Breece better have my money.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You're 3 points ahead of me in the scoring.
Yeah.
But you're 2 wins below me.
I am 2 wins below you, largely because, again, if you check out how many points are scored against me versus scored against everybody else, everybody has their best game against me. Fine.
You're only 50 points ahead of me in scoring. Points against
only 50.
Only 50.
All right. So what's your prediction? What's your score prediction for that game, Anthony?
I hate score predictions, but 17-3. Robert Saleh doesn't tend to run up the score, much to my chagrin. I think 17-3 seems fair. I think we'll kick some field goals. I think we'll score 2 touchdowns, and I think we'll just ice the game.
Okay. Should we talk about the Bills-Bucks matchup on Thursday this week?
Bills and the Bucks. I mean, we can. I mean, definitely. I feel like the Bills are going to come out with some fire, especially after taking that miserable loss to my Patriots. They're going to go and look at some tape and see what they did wrong and try and correct it in this game. And I think the Bucks is the perfect team to do it. They don't seem like the same dominant, scary team that they were when they had Tom Brady, but Baker Mayfield's not doing a terrible job over there either. So I think they might be in for another tough game, especially since that Bucks secondary has always been tough. They've always been flying to the ball. They've always been super quick and super aggressive. So what are some score predictions that we see going over there? I mean, if they don't get it right with their offense and learn to kind of distribute that ball and get more of their players involved, then do we really see them winning this game against the Bucks?
Well, this is such a weird game for me because there's two weird teams. I don't know which version of the Bucks is going to show up, and I don't know which version of the Bills is going to show up. If the Bills team that played the Dolphins 3 weeks ago shows up, then the Bucks don't stand a chance. But this is also a really scrappy Bucks team. Underrated, they're underrated with how scrappy they are. And I like Baker Mayfield more than most because the guy just puts it all out there, leaves it all out there.
He has to.
Yeah. So I think the Bills are going to win, and I think the Bills are going. I think the Bills are going to come back from this game against the Patriots. I think they're going to win, and I think they're going to. I'd say 27-17. They're going to win that game.
Okay.
I think this is the classic look-ahead game because it's a home game. They're playing against a team that, quite frankly, is not very talented, but has explosive players. Mike Evans, we saw last week. He's healthy.
Yeah.
When he's healthy, he can take one long.
Mm-hmm.
And this Bills offense isn't exactly clicking. They're struggling against man coverage, which is what the Bucs do. Todd Bowles schemes up as well as anybody in terms of a defense. So, and the Bills are playing the Bengals the following week.
Yeah.
I think the Bills are expecting a win. And I think that this one could sneak up on them. Because like you said, Baker Mayfield's scrappy. I would call him downright plucky.
Yep.
Like he is a try-hardy guy.
How do you look past a team like the Bucs when you just lost to a team like the Patriots? Again, Chris, no offense, but how do you look past them when that just happened to you?
You can't. That's what I think the Patriots were a wake-up call for them because a lot of people count the Patriots, myself included, because they just haven't been clicking. The team was 1-4 or 1-5 before they went into the game, not at 2-5, and those are both divisional games that we've won. So you can't really look past a team like that. You just gotta be prepared. Any given Sunday, every given Sunday, a team can come and surprise you. And I think the Bucs are. I think the Bills are going to be in for another surprise. I'm honestly calling the Bucs to win this game 24-17. That's why I see the score going.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
a nationally televised game, and like I said, this is Todd Bowles, and that dude can scheme.
We know a lot of Bills fans on this channel. This channel is going to melt to the ground if that happens.
Yeah.
So
call it now. Over under one Bills rep next week.
Under.
Under rep next week if they lose.
No, in all honesty, like I suppose I can see that result happening, Chris. I don't
want it to.
What's that?
I say you just don't want it to. Oh, okay.
I want it to. It's the Bills. I want them to lose every game they play.
Absolutely.
But I just, I don't see it. I think this Bills team is going to figure out a way to right themselves against the Bucs on Thursday. Josh Allen also shines when the lights are bright. So, that
was the case, and they would have made it to the Super Bowl by now.
Yeah, I suppose. But so Anthony, do you have a score projection for that game?
Yeah, I liked what Chris was doing. I think this is a constant trap game. I think this is a clear trap game because their next week is an away game against the Bengals, who are waking up. Okay.
Yeah, they are waking up. They're looking better.
Yeah, I could see this game being 24, 21, 24-20, something like that. I don't think it's going to be – I think if it's a high-scoring game, there's no way the Bucs could hang in. But I think I see a world where Todd Bowles could clamp down on this Bills team. They struggle a little bit. Maybe Josh Allen presses a little bit. Maybe he throws a couple of ill-timed interceptions, fumbles, something like that. The ground game doesn't get going. He feels a little bit of pressure. I can talk myself into the Bucs winning this one.
Okay. Wish that into existence. I like it. I'm down with it, but I just don't see it. But I will say this AFC East, it was looking like it was getting further away a few weeks ago, and now it's starting to tighten back up again, where no team is going to run away with it. And, come weeks 15, 16, 17, there's going to be some matchups in there that are really going to define how it goes later on in the season.
Not to get too far away from this, but I generally think the Bills need this game.
Yeah.
Because if they pick up a fourth loss by week 8, the second half of the schedule is brutal for them. Yeah. I mean, for one, they have at the Bengals, which is going to be nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get the Broncos at home, but then they get the Jets. And then they have to travel to the Eagles. And then they have to travel to the Chiefs. And then they get the Cowboys. And then they finish up with the Patriots and the Dolphins.
Yeah, rough matchups for sure. So, and like I said, they can't give away any games. So, this, like you said, Anthony, if they lose this one, it's going to be tough matchups moving forward. And will we even see them at the end of? Will we even see them over 500 at the end of the season if they start just giving away games? I mean, they do have tough. I mean, the Bengals haven't been playing to their potential, but you feel, like I always say, football, it's not about who starts hot, it's about who ends hot. So Bengals been playing rough. Will they turn around during the second half of the season? Will they get it together? Who's gonna really catch heat and take that all the way into the playoffs, you know? So
well, the Bengals are coming around, Chris. The Bengals,
oh yeah,
they're gonna come around.
oh yeah.
They're coming off a bye week right now. Joe Burrow is getting healthier, he's playing better football. And I don't know who they have this week, but going into the Bills game, if they're still healthy, if they're still playing well, that's going to be a tough. What's that?
No, I was just going to say they have the 49ers this week. That's all.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
49ers look kind of soft yesterday.
Yeah.
They don't have Christian McCaffrey. That team looks a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that was another thing I wanted to bring out, because I wanted to bring out some notable mentions around the NFL, and definitely Purdy. Without CMC, he looks very pedestrian. He looked human, because I think they said before this game, Purdy hadn't lost a start. He hadn't lost a game in an NFL start. He was like 10-1, or he's like 10-0 or something to that nature.
Wow.
Yeah, so Purdy had won all 10 of his starts. He was looking great. Did he lose last week?
He lost last week.
Yeah. So before he lost last week, he was 10-0. Now he's 10-2 because he lost the last two games. So you can definitely see the impact of CMC, and CMC is a great player all around. But man, you would never think. And granted, they have CMC. They don't. CMC's not 100%. They don't have Deebo Samuels, but still, they were able to win games. But Purdy is starting to show a chink in his armor. And on the flip side of that, it looks like the Vikings are starting to catch heat even without Justin Jefferson. TJ Hawkinson is starting to step up. They paid him a lot of money. He's starting to show that he is the player that they paid for. And Jordan Addison, man, what a pickup, because Jordan Addison had a career day, and he was on my fantasy team. So he won me one of my leagues, 5-0 this week, like I said before. But Jordan Addison, I think he went for 130 yards and or 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. So have a day, Jordan Addison. So it was definitely a beautiful all-around game. Exciting game on both sides. So you got to wonder if the 49ers could bounce back, if Purdy can shake off some of that doubt that he might be experiencing now, having lost 2 back-to-back, and if he can turn it around, and the 49ers can continue to click on all cylinders and be the team that we know they are. Great defense, great offense, but is this going to shake him? Because he's still a young player.
Look, credit to the Vikings for coming out and playing the 49ers as tough as they did last night. They were a team that a lot of people, myself included, had dead and buried, and they showed a lot of mental toughness with playing without their best player and coming out there and beating a 49ers team that's still tough and formidable without Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. Brock Purdy didn't play a very good game. I don't think Brock Purdy's all that great of a quarterback. I think he's in a great system.
Yes.
And he's starting to get, I'm not even going to say he's starting to get exposed a little bit, because this isn't the end. This isn't the end for the 49ers. This isn't the last time we're going to hear from this football team. So there's, their story hasn't been written yet, not after 2 losses, but I also don't view Brock Purdy as the future in San Francisco, and I think that they can do better.
I definitely think they can do better, but there's the fact that he is the cheapest quarterback, I think, right now in the NFL.
That's
the
true.
fact that he's the cheapest starting quarterback in the NFL allows them
the
ability to build around with a whole team and not have to be cheap at any position. They're not trying to skimp on anything. I think the loss of Christian McCaffrey is a big one. It also seems like behind Christian McCaffrey, they've invested a lot at running back, and they're not getting very much out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of why they lost, because Christian McCaffrey, obviously, he didn't play to his full potential with his oblique and a rib injury.
Mhm.
But you kind of thought that they would maybe rest him a little bit more, put him on a committee. But they didn't really incorporate the Mason that they had. Was it Jeff or Jason Mason? Jordan Mason?
Yeah.
Jordan Mason.
Yeah, Jordan Mason. So they didn't incorporate him into the game plan at all, which was a big surprise to me. I thought they'd give him a little bit of rest and let the other guys go, because I think 49ers really work well when they can get that running game going, when they have players come out the backfield. So it was just a shock to me. I think it was just a bad call in the coaching, and I think that's ultimately why they lost.
Yeah, it's a similar system. Obviously McDaniel comes from the Shanahan tree.
Yeah.
Where like establish the run means something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Having explosive out of the running game opens up the passing game. That's the West Coast system.
Absolutely.
So like the idea that like he's not getting very much out of the backup running backs. They have, like I said, invested multiple picks in running backs, and they haven't gotten too much out of it. Their best running back that they've sort of developed was Raheem Mostert, and he's with the Dolphins now. They drafted what's his name? Trey Sermon.
Trey Sermon, yeah, from
He's
Ohio State.
somewhere else
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. He was on the Eagles practice squad last I checked. I don't know where he's at now. He was. I don't even know if he's still there.
That is rough.
Yeah. Elijah Mitchell had some nice games for them.
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell was the same draft as Trey Sermon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that healthy scratch?
Was he really? I didn't know this.
Yeah,
I didn't know he was a healthy scratch last night.
Yeah, they didn't use him at all. He just sitting there.
Damn.
That's some poor roster management, in my opinion.
That's what I'm saying. They should have went to Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell, because he's just there.
Yeah, for sure. Another one that I want to get around to. Let's talk a little bit about my boy Tyson Bagent. Killing it for the Bears.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You want to talk Brock Purdy-esque? Just took care of the football. Just check downs. Just hit your guys short. Don't give up any nasty fumbles, any nasty interceptions. Keep your team in it. Tyson Bagent, let's go.
And Donta Foreman had a day.
Yeah, he did.
He had a day for himself.
Two on the ground, one in the air.
And the terrible thing about that, I'll always go to fantasy football. I picked him up in one of my leagues because David Montgomery is hurt, and I end up saying Donta Foreman for Jeff Wilson Jr. because I thought he was going to kind of jump right back into offense since he's off the IL. But man, he got one touch, I think, for the Dolphins. But Donta Foreman, 3 touchdowns, left a bunch of points on my bench. Fortunately, I won. But man, he had himself a day for sure.
Yeah. That Bears team, I'm going to tell you right now, I live in Chicago, and that team's buzzing. You're starting to hear some talk. Because that defense looked legit. The offense stayed in it the whole time. Tyson Bagent did not look scared, especially for a UDFA from a Division II school.
Yeah, he won the Division II Heisman Trophy, I think.
Yeah.
Their version of the Heisman Trophy.
Whatever they call it.
Yeah. So, I mean, good for him. I love to see him out there. He loved what he was doing, taking care of the ball, making some nice throws. Don't think he's going to supplant Justin Fields. Not that maybe Justin Fields hasn't deserved a little bit of a supplanting, but hey, he hasn't played. He hasn't been good enough.
He's been doing pretty well. He's been having some great games. I mean, even like a few weeks ago before he got hurt, Justin Fields had the same stat line as Patrick Mahomes, and a lot of people don't talk about it, but he had the same stat line as Patrick Mahomes through the air, and then he has more production on the ground. So I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think he had about 15 touchdowns and maybe 4 or 5 interceptions. So there was one game where he had 4 touchdowns through the air. So Justin Fields is not a bad quarterback, and I think he's actually stopped running as much this year, kind of like how they kind of reined him back, like Lamar Jackson, they reined him back. So I don't want to say he hasn't been doing good, but I just don't think it gets the same attention because the team's still losing, Yeah. So it's it doesn't get the same attention, which is funny because you'll see something like that, right? You'll see something like Justin Fields having as many touchdowns as Patrick Mahomes, but they just won't. Like if he makes a mistake, they'll look at him like Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott can have a great game, but any mistake, then they're gonna blow it up. Patrick Mahomes have a bad game, it's the receiver's fault. It's never Patrick's fault. So I think
I'd like to point out though that amazing game that he had was against Commander's team that is in free fall.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that 4-touchdown game was against a team that's basically giving up on their head coach. And, some of his other they've had a pretty soft schedule so far.
Yeah.
And his stat line really on the season, 11 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's got some production on the ground, but we're not talking about a guy that's like a world beater at the moment. He's on pace for 2,900 yards on the season, 27 touchdowns, 15 interceptions if he didn't get hurt. And then he's also, I think he's got a few fumbles too.
Yeah.
So he's doing okay. He's doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
But you also, I'm big on timelines. That team he's going to be coming up for a second contract. This is going to be the year where you have to give him his 5th-year option, because obviously you need your 5th-year option after your 3rd year. So is that team ready to compete by the time he's on a real contract? Are they even confident about giving him the 5th-year option? I would be personally.
I would.
Also, Anthony, you're going to be picking probably in the top 10 this year of the draft.
Oh, you're at least top 10, and they have the Carolina Panthers pick.
Right.
And that's going to be number 1 overall. You're going to have your Caleb Williams right there.
Yeah, Caleb Williams, Drake May, one of those guys.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to trade down again? I don't know.
Right. And,
So we'll see. I like Justin Fields. I think he's a pretty good quarterback. I take him over most of the quarterbacks in the NFL.
I would too. But I would also consider if the Atlanta Falcons are calling, and I keep banging the table for this, the Atlanta Falcons are calling, and they're willing to offer a 1st-round pick because that team is ready to compete.
Yeah,
I'm shipping them.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not even thinking about it because if Travis Page, you can lose with or without Justin Fields.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're not winning with him, so.
Yeah, you have valid points. I'll give it to you there. Another team I wanted to talk about, the Steelers. Steelers surprised me this week, but I think that was big, and that was mostly on the fact that they had the return of Deontay Johnson, and they were able to start getting that production that they were lacking. So I think it's a time for the Steelers to turn their season around. Kenny Pickett definitely played a clean game. He had no interceptions. I think he had 1 touchdown. Overall, 200-something yards through the air, a couple of rushing yards. But how do we feel about the Steelers at this point in the season, guys?
I think the Steelers are a team that is probably 2 seasons away from competing. I think Kenny Pickett is a quarterback that is going to continue to figure it out. And I think he looks to be like a guy who's going to slowly progress into being the quarterback that the Steelers need him to be, a la Drew Brees back in the day. He slowly progressed when he was with the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was a time where the Chargers didn't think he was going to be their guy. And then when they finally drafted Phillip Rivers, that's when Drew Brees became the Drew Brees that we all came to know. I see the same thing out of Kenny Pickett. I think Kenny Pickett is going to be a solid quarterback in this league, but he's just working his way towards that. And I think the Steelers are a team that they're always going to be a tough out. Philly just scored a run. But they're always going to be a tough out, but I think they're probably 2 seasons away from being real players in the AFC.
Okay. Anthony, you watching the Steelers game?
Yeah, I think there's still a lopsided team. I think the defense still drags them kicking and screaming to wins.
Yeah.
And while I don't disagree that eventually Kenny Pickett might turn into something, like right now, it's hard to tell because their offensive coordinator is probably bottom 3 in the league. It'd be hard pressed to find one who legitimately looks like he's trying to sabotage his team more.
Yeah,
than Matt Canada.
There's no imagination in that play calling.
It's a disaster class. It's YOLO balls to George Pickens, and that's not even the worst of it.
Straight up gut punches with Najee Harris. No, just my God, yeah.
There's not much to it. There's not much,
Yeah.
So yeah,
I also love Mike Tomlin as a coach.
Go ahead.
I also love Mike Tomlin as a coach.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah, for sure.
A rock solid
He's-
dude and a rock solid
Mhm.
coach.
Absolutely.
And I love Mike Tomlin as a head coach. He's just really just a steady Eddie, just steadies the ship.
Mhm.
I know a lot of Steelers fans where I'm at.
Yeah.
Don't like Mike Tomlin very much.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of Steelers fans think that they could do better than Mike Tomlin, and I keep on telling them, and I disagree. I couldn't disagree more. Like I keep on telling them, there was a long time there. There was a long time there where the Dolphins were going through their Adam Gases and their you know, I would have taken Mike Tomlin as their head coach with a big smile on my face.
Absolutely.
And but he's not well liked amongst some of the Steelers contingents, and I've never quite understood it.
It's weird. Like the way that I really feel like sports talk radio and like talking heads in general have sort of ruined the way NFL fans watch the game. This idea that like we need to win the Super Bowl every year. This idea that like everybody's a bust 5 games into their career. That quarterback can get it done in the playoffs or he can't. It's really ruined the way that we look at the NFL, and you see it. I feel like at the most at the fringes at like the quarterback position, and then also at like head coaches, because like things don't go wrong, fire the head coach, or don't go right, fire the head coach. Oh, they look great this week, extend him for the next 40 years. Like.
And I think the last time. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead, Anthony. You saw the point.
No. It just goes with that idea that like it's a long game. The NFL season is long. Careers are long. Like let's take things into perspective.
Yeah, and I think you got to give coaches. I think coaches and players also needed time to kind of build into a system because coaches have an idea, So if you give them time to go after players, to build a system that they want, then they can actually make something of a team. But if you fire them after a season or two, it's not going to happen. And I always think about the Bears. They fired Lovie Smith, right? And then after that, they haven't had a successful coach since, and the team just kind of been all garbage, it's been trash, right?
One it's after the other.
And they fired him after he went 10-6. It's like 10-6 is great for compared to some of the what they've been doing.
In the same respect, Chris, like the Texans just fired Lovie Smith. And D'Amico Ryans has stepped into the Texans and made them look infinitely better than
they do have a new quarterback though.
I was about to say, is that D'Amico Ryans or is that TJ Stroud?
I think I'm going to say it's a little bit of both.
Davis Mills wasn't doing it.
Thank you.
I'm going to say it's a little bit of both. Because the Texans team as a whole just looks more competitive than they ever did under Lovie Smith.
Quarterbacks do that for you.
And they went and got quarterbacks. They went and got some receivers. They went and got another running back in Devin Singletary. That team was terrible, but they had what's it called? Yeah, they had what was the quarterback's name? Davis Mills, and then the other guy before him. The guy before him, I can't remember his name.
Oh, the one with the Tom Savage.
Yeah, Tom Savage. It's like that was the quarterback he had to deal with. Nobody's, So it was like you get a guy in CJ Stroud who didn't throw his first interception until until last game. It's, that will change the whole course of your season. So of course it's like you don't give a guy a chance and then the next guy steps in and all of a sudden the team starts doing well. I kind of think about Mark Jackson and Steve Kerr. Mark Jackson stepped into a positive situation when Steve Kerr stepped into a positive situation that Mark Jackson built with that Warriors team. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, Steve Kerr is such a great coach. It's like, no, Mark Jackson built that team from the ground up, built those guys from the ground up, and that guy just inherited it, So,
I mean, talent matters so much in this league. It matters more than coaching. I mean, you can have coaches that can coach themselves out of a good situation, but rarely will you have a situation where a coach single-handedly will not change the roster and somehow do significantly better simply because he decided to play a player in the slot versus outside. He decided to play one player in here versus where he was playing before. Generally speaking, talent will out, and eventually after losing so much and having so many top picks, you just accumulate talent, and then all of a sudden they get a new head coach and that guy's a genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The coaches that lost you all those games, those are all failures, and you just sort of toss them away. But like, I've watched it happen over and over again so many times in this league. Like Mike Singletary was the coach of the San Francisco 49ers, and they were absolutely terrible over and over again. And then they get John Harbaugh, and all of a sudden they're amazing. Was it John Harbaugh, or did they have like a whole bunch of top 5 picks over and over again?
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said for that, but I think, especially in Mike Singletary's case, that team quit on Mike Singletary.
Yeah, absolutely. He was terrible.
And when your team quits on you, you got to go.
For sure. For sure.
So,
but there's something to having an amalgamation of talent. There are very few coaches, I think, that can like really, their scheme somehow changes the dynamics of the entire football team. I will say this though, I do think McDaniel is one of them. I do think McDaniel is one of those very few coaches who is so brilliant that he almost single-handedly made that team competitive.
I'm not going to disagree. I think their speed helps a lot with that.
Of course.
But yeah, I'm not going to disagree. But I also think that's Kyle Shanahan is one of those guys as well, where
maybe, yeah.
you know he
that's right.
He makes Brock Purdy look a lot better than he actually.
Of course, is. Absolutely.
And that's a sign of a great coach.
Mm-hmm. And before that, he made Jimmy Garoppolo look a whole lot better than he is. Yeah, and like before that, like he was the offensive coordinator for RG3, who had like one of the most amazing rookie seasons anybody's ever seen.
Yeah,
like he makes things easy for his players, like McDaniel does.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. Well, we're starting to come up on time. So do we have any final thoughts going into this next week? Anything that we're looking forward to? Matchups either in our division or outside of our division?
I'm definitely looking forward to the Patriots exposing the Dolphins, getting that third W on the roster. I mean, on the bracket, and kind of moving forward and to ultimately going above 500. Another game I'm looking forward to is the Jaguars versus the Steelers. I think the Steelers are starting to find their rhythm right now, and they're going to turn their season around. The Jaguars are kind of sputtering right now, and well, they're winning, but I think ultimately they need to figure out when it comes to their offense, and I only say that because I have Calvin Ridley on my fantasy football team, and he's going to so I think, but that ultimately I think that's going to be a pretty good game against one of the premier defense and premier offense in the league. So I'm looking forward to that, and of course the Patriots versus the Dolphins. So that's mine.
I'm looking for the Dolphins to get back on track, and I said it before, I say it again. I don't expect this game to be particularly close, Chris. And I agree. I love that you have your swagger back. I love to see you talking trash again. It's the beaten down version of Chris is not the version I want to see on this show. But this, in my opinion, isn't going to be an easy game for you to stomach. We'll see. We'll see though. It's gonna be fun.
We'll see.
All right, for me, we're going on start number 2 for Tyson Bagent. I'm excited. I'm in Chicago. I got a lot of Chicago Bears fans that are friends of mine. I'm looking forward to watching that game. Obviously, I'm looking forward to a Jets W against the Giants. But if we don't beat the Giants, I'm just going to look defeated. So I'm expecting a win. And maybe I'm too cocky, I'm too confident. That's fine. That's Robert Saleh's job. He has to get the boys to play. That's not me.
Okay.
But for me, this week, storylines. What's up?
You should expect a win.
Yeah, we should. This should be a win that we expect. Let's see some good Tyson Bagent play. I just want to spice it up here in Chicago a little bit. I want to see them. I want to see some storylines written. I want to see some controversy. I want to see some drama. Mm-hmm. That'd be cool for me.
And as always, I want to see the Bills lose. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. No, we agree with that. Yeah. 100%. All three of us. Bills lose. That'll make our weekend.
Yeah. We can all agree on that.
100%. 100%. All right. I think that's where we are. So I'm super excited. No, great show tonight. Maybe we can get one of you guys to show up next week.
Um, as always,
And
guys, like and subscribe if you like what you heard today. To everybody who came into the comments and talked with us, thank you very much, Sean. A little less anger next time.
No. I like this is a perfect amount of anger. The Bills lose next week. Let's do this more.
Yeah. Sean was. I'm pretty sure he was foaming at the mouth back there. I know it. I just know. I can sense it. Yeah, for sure, guys. You're gonna beat me to that, Keith. But yeah, guys, if you enjoy the show, definitely like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on Nickel City Mafia. We have a few channels. I know they got the Bill Saber channel. They got the of course, their own Bills. The Buffalo Sabres channel for hockey. They got the Bills channel as well. They have and of course us at the AFC East Summit. So if you like what you see, share it. Definitely join us in the comment section. We love hearing from you guys. And yeah, anything else, Anthony?
No, I think that's about it. Guys, for the Jets, take flight.
Pats Nation.
Fins up. Also, go Phils.
Go Phils. All right, guys, have a great one.
2-1 right now.
Okay. All right, guys, have a great one, and we will see you next week at 8:00. Take it easy.
Indeed.